Joining us now is the First Lady of the Navajo Nation. Thank you so much for joining us here on New Mexico in Focus. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Petfilia Ness. I'm the First Lady of the Navajo Nation. That's how I relate to my Navajo relatives.
All right, thank you so much. And I wanted to share or have you share a little bit about the very important serious work of missing and murdered Indigenous people. It is a really tough topic for the Navajo Nation, families, and Indigenous people across the United States to talk about, but it's also a very important issue. Can you share some of your work you're doing on task forces both in New Mexico and in Arizona?
Well, for New Mexico, I've been working with the task force, was appointed October of last year, and we just ended our task force duties for the first year in November of 2020. So it went 2019 to 2020. And for the Navajo Nation, from the Office of the First Lady and Second Lady, a lot of our efforts have been revolving around just educating the public on MMIW, and then as well as human trafficking, because there's a connection there definitely, but it's not one and the same. And then for the Arizona human, and the other one that we've been reaching out to is the Arizona Governor's Human Trafficking and Human Trafficking Advisory Council, and then New Mexico Human Trafficking Task Force. So it's been a lot of efforts of partnering with them to educate the public on some of these items.
And the task force here in New Mexico recently released a report of the work and recommendations for the governor and also New Mexico state lawmakers. What is the top priority that the task force found that needs to be done to address missing and murdered Indigenous people in New Mexico?
It would be data collection. There's you're talking about numerous tribes and pueblos in New Mexico, and every one of those tribes and pueblos, we have our own tribal justice systems. Everybody has their own laws, and so as sovereign nations, it's really something that needs to be addressed almost internally. But then, of course, we want to keep support of the state of New Mexico. So it would be a partnership across jurisdictions and also with the federal institutions as well.
And how does law enforcement looking at jurisdictions play? Because there are a number of tribes in New Mexico, the Navajo Nation, Apache tribes, and the Pueblo communities, all sovereign nations, like you said, with different laws, language, culture, history, and then working not only just locally on the state and national level. So how is working with law enforcement, why is that key in addressing this issue?
A lot of it starts with reporting. And the second step in that is the actual classifications. And so when you're looking at different databases, they don't all collect the same types of information. And the other important factor here is accessibility. Who gets access to these data collection centers and how are they utilized? That's really been the top two findings, I think, from the report itself. So when we're talking about collaborations and partnering, we can't force another jurisdiction or, across even from border towns, like for Navajo Nation, we wouldn't be able to strong any border town or any county or any state court system or PD to give us information. So it really has to be done in a collaborative effort. And I think that's always been the greatest barrier, maybe.
And part of the task force, not only looking at these issues, is a lack of resources. What kind of resources are needed to look, study, create a database, and just keep this movement of MMIW and other missing persons going?
In terms of database, I think for the tribes ourselves, it's because So for example, some of our tribal members, they have memberships, or they're either married or have children in other tribal communities. So when you have two tribal communities who don't share the same database, it's really hard to even connect in those ways. So maybe that's where that those shared agreements to have access to each other's reporting databases, that's very important. But the other one that we see firsthand, I guess, on tribal communities is just a reluctance to even report certain things to law enforcement. And then beyond that would just be, there's a great need for education, I think, of the public on how the criminal justice system operates on each tribal system. And then, of course, you have to look at how things operate off the nation. If things occur, if there's an incident that occurs off the nation, you're looking at either working with a city, a county, or state a justice system. And then, of course, when the federal justice system gets involved, that's a whole different layer of items so every case is not always going to be the same. And I think that's where there's a lot of confusion that sets in place, and it's where a lot of distrust happens. But there needs to be definitely a great amount of education to the public on that.
And what is the importance of having families involved in the process? What kind of things are you hearing from families? And we're not just talking about just older women. The Navajo Nation very unfortunately lost Ashlyn Mike, which was, internationally known, and the community came together to remember her. And it was such a hard time on not only the Navajo Nation, but other tribes across the country relating to these different types of cases. So what are you hearing from families?
For families, it's just a lot of support services, wraparound services, comprehensive services. That's really what's needed during the time when an incident occurs. And then there's also a need for services for returning survivors. So families do need support when a member of their family returns home, and that's usually sometimes that's left out of the conversations, but we definitely heard from some families who are struggling with that right now.
And can you share some information about some of the work the Navajo Nation in particular is doing on missing and murdered Indigenous people?
There's a lot of education and prevention efforts. You see a lot more on that end. In the future, we would like to see more in terms of, reporting. But of course, in order for anybody to report anything, they need to know what it is that they're looking for and how some of these things occur. And I think that's something. Maybe that's the reason why we don't have many people reporting, because they don't know what it is that they're really seeing and witnessing happening in their own communities.
And is there any resource that people should reach out to or look to if they're in need of assistance?
We'll be posting resource links on our new website for the Office of the First Lady, Second Lady. So that's where a lot of families will definitely be making that known during the virtual event. We'll have a website and then a forthcoming app, so they'll always have access to those on there.
Well, First Lady, thank you so much for joining us and talking about this very important and hard issue that many families and tribes across the country, including the Navajo Nation, are working on.
Thank you.